Hey guys, good morning. Today is day 24 of Wise Up, a daily dose of wisdom from the book of Proverbs for your daily life. I'm here in the kitchen making some coffee and we're getting the day started. Great. Here we are. You know, I heard it said, I saw this thing one time, it said this. It said, it isn't the force that wears away the rock, like the force of a stream that wears away the rock. It's the persistence. What that's saying is that it doesn't take a massive flood of water to change and smooth out rocks and make creek rocks what they are. It's actually just years and years and years of water gently and persistently every day shaping those rocks into what they become. And you'll see in just a second how that applies to our verse for today. Here it is. We're looking at Proverbs 24:17 and 18 here. Do not gloat when your enemy falls. When he stumbles, do not let your heart rejoice. Or the Lord will see and disapprove and turn his wrath away from him. So here we kind of have these two things, right? We have don't gloat when your enemy falls, right? Don't puff your chest and rejoice and woo, yeah, he deserved that or whatever, right? Don't gloat when your enemy falls and don't rejoice whenever he stumbles, right? And the second thing is this. The Lord will disapprove. Now, what's he disapproving? So I'm going to use an illustration here, and it's just me being candid, okay? I don't mean anything political by this. I don't mean anything like that. So I hope you can understand and see my heart here. But I'll never forget the night that it was announced that Osama bin Laden was assassinated. This huge terrorist in the world, right? Because I'm not saying that, you know, justice doesn't exist. I'm not saying that things and people who cause harm like that to people shouldn't be brought to justice. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is this. It felt weird to me that so many people were so excited and treated it like this massive victory, like we'd won the Super Bowl. Okay, so I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying I felt weird, and that's me being really candid. On one hand, I was really relieved that, you know, justice had been served, but on the other hand, I was actually kind of sad to know that, you know, a lost soul on this earth was living. And so it was just a weird experience. And I heard, you know, Francis Chan kind of echoed the same sentiment. And it was just this bizarre experience. Maybe you have some similar experience in your life. But see, this verse doesn't just talk about an enemy dying or being killed or anything like that. It doesn't have to be about war, killing. It can really be about the littlest things, right? Because our hearts can be changed by just the littlest of things. Think about this. How many of us have a sports team or our school sports team or just a favorite team, and when, you know, someone brings up a rival team and you go, oh, I just hate that team. Or think about when you are at a game and say you're playing a rival school and here you are just talking trash and you're, yeah, you know, oh yeah, Nixa sucks or, you know, whatever it may be. But you allow this spirit in yourself to be against this team, right? And you hate this team and you want to show them because they're terrible people, right? Like every rival team are like the worst people, and their fans are the worst people ever. Do you know what I'm talking about? And so I even hear it all the time. I hate this team. Really? Like, we hate these people? But do you know what I'm talking about? It's easy to jump while you're in the game to name calling and booing and this and that and getting on to people and letting your heart get worked up about stuff. But think about how you feel whenever one of their players that you've been griping about the whole night suddenly hits his head or her head on the floor and has to be carried off in a stretcher. How do you feel then? How do you feel about rejoicing and wanting bad things for that team or whoever it is? Is there something inside of you that questions that says, was all the hate worth it? Have I maybe allowed myself to be too harsh and realize that it's just a sport? Is gloating about our enemy's failures really worth it? And especially when it comes to sports, we don't have enemies. They're different teams. That's something that we've been conditioned into believing, is that teams going against teams are like enemies. Y'all chill. They're sports, and these are people. These are people made in God's image. So our question is gloating about our enemy's failures really worth it? Solomon says, no, it really isn't. In fact, he says, be careful, because if you do, when you do, guess what? The Lord might remove this barrier. The Lord might turn away his wrath from your enemy. Dang. Jesus teaches us later. He says, you've heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you. Really? That's the most backwards thing. And y'all, last school year, if you were there at youth with us, we looked at the Sermon on the Mount and talked about how Jesus takes our understanding of the world and he goes, poof, and he flips it totally on its head. And he goes, yeah, the world says love the people who love you. And if there's haters, yeah, forget them. Hate those guys. You don't need them in your life. But you know what Jesus says? He says, love the haters. Love those who hate you. Love your enemies. And pray for the ones who persecute you. Why? Because it comes down to your heart. The heart of somebody who says, yeah, you might be my enemy. You may be out and against me. But I see that you are human, created in God's image, and I, for that reason, if for that reason alone, I can love you. And I can pray for you, and I can pray that your soul may be healed. So the idea is this. People are made in God's image, but don't allow the selfish and often foolish pride of life puff yourself up too much. Don't allow that. Remember that illustration at the beginning when it comes to a stream and the smooth creek rocks? It isn't the force, it isn't a sudden force that causes the rocks to be that way, to smooth them out, to make them so unique. It's the persistence. And in the same way, when we allow little bits of that pride to puff ourselves up, to hate our enemies, for bitterness to take root, for hate, for all of that to take root, every little tiny bit, it doesn't take a big force of that to create it. It just takes a little bit of persistence. So ask God today to be changing your heart, to guard your heart, and to change your heart to be more like him and to grow into the image of him, which is really the reason that we're all here and that we're all created. So I hope that blesses you today. I hope that challenges you and gives you something to think about as you go throughout the day. Have a great day. We'll see you guys tonight at youth, and we'll see you again here tomorrow morning at 7. See ya.